The desert had a way of swallowing sound. By day, it was all heat shimmering off the endless sand and rock, the buzz of cicadas hiding in the brush, the occasional growl of a truck on the highway. But by night, silence ruled, thick, velvet silence broken only by the whisper of wind that slipped between the dunes. It was in that silence that Lena found herself, alone, headlights cutting through the darkness as she drove along a narrow road outside a small Arizona town. She shouldn't have come back here. Not tonight. Not after everything that had been said. But she couldn't stay away from him. She told herself it was the desert pulling her, or the memory of long summer nights when she'd been younger, when temptation had been just an idea and not a choice she had already made. But in truth, it was him. Daniel. The one man she couldn't have, the one man she couldn't forget. Her phone buzzed on the passenger seat, lighting up with a simple message. Same place. Midnight. She exhaled, gripping the wheel tighter. Every time she got that text, she swore it would be the last time. Every time, she promised herself she'd delete his number, block him, bury the memory of his touch. And yet, every time, she found herself driving deeper into the desert, chasing something she knew she should resist. The pull between them was dangerous. He was older, tied to a life she had no place in. He wore his responsibilities like armor, a man who lived by rules and honor, until it came to her. With her, he let it all slip. With her, he was fire in human form, impossible to contain. She pulled off the road onto a dirt path she knew by memory, dust rising behind her tires. At the end of it stood the old water tower, long abandoned, a landmark that had become their secret meeting place. Her pulse quickened when she saw his truck already parked beneath it, dark and solid like a shadow carved into the night. He was leaning against it when she stepped out, the glow of the moon catching the hard lines of his jaw, the sharpness of his shoulders. He didn't smile, didn't move, just watched her like he always did, like he'd been starving and she was the only thing that could save him. Lena, he said, her name low, gravel in the quiet. Daniel. She folded her arms across her chest, though not from the chill. The night was warm, carrying the day's heat like a secret. We shouldn't be here. No, he pushed off the truck, walking toward her, slow and deliberate. We shouldn't. And yet he kept coming, each step a promise he had no intention of breaking. She tried to hold her ground, but when he stopped in front of her, so close she could feel the warmth of him, her resolve cracked like dry earth under rain. His hand brushed against hers, a whisper of touch, but it was enough to send sparks racing through her veins. You keep calling me back, he said softly, even when you tell me not to. I don't call, she whispered, though her body betrayed her, leaning into him. I try to stay away. And yet, his fingers trailed up her arm, slow, deliberate, leaving fire in their wake. Here you are. She should have turned away. She should have reminded him of everything they stood to lose, the people who would never forgive them if they knew, the life that would unravel. But when his lips brushed her temple, feather-light, she closed her eyes and let the desert swallow the sound of her surrender. The first kiss was stolen, the kind that could have been a mistake if either of them pulled back. But they didn't. His mouth found hers with a hunger that made her knees weak, his hands sliding to the small of her back, pulling her against him. She tasted salt and heat and something dangerous, something that made her forget the world beyond this night. Her hands fisted in his shirt, pulling him closer, as though closeness could erase the guilt that pulsed in the back of her mind. His body pressed to hers, solid and unyielding, but his touch was tender, careful in the way he traced her cheek, the way he angled his head to deepen the kiss. Every meeting was like this, hesitation drowned by need, restraint shattered by desire. And every time, it felt like the first, the thrill of crossing a line they could never uncross. Tell me to stop, he murmured against her lips, his breath warm, his voice ragged. She could have. She almost did. But then his thumb brushed her jaw, tilting her face so he could look at her in the pale light, and what she saw in his eyes undid her. It wasn't just lust. It was longing. It was love, raw and fierce, the kind that made rules meaningless. I can't, she whispered. His mouth was on hers again before the words had fully left her lips, and this time there was nothing tentative about it. It was urgent, desperate, the kiss of a man who knew he was risking everything and no longer cared. She melted against him, her body alive with every place he touched, every place he hadn't yet. The desert around them seemed to disappear. There was no small town waiting with its judgment, no obligations, no consequences. Just heat, breath, heartbeat. Just him and her and the fire that burned hotter than the desert sun. He pressed her back against the side of the truck, his hands framing her face as though she was something precious, even as his kiss grew rougher, needier. She arched into him, fingers tangled in his hair, dragging him closer, wanting more, needing more. Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst. She could feel the danger of it all, the risk of being seen, the impossibility of what they were doing, but it only made every second sharper, every kiss deeper. Forbidden love wasn't just a phrase. It was a fever, and they were burning. When he finally tore his lips from hers, both of them breathing hard, he rested his forehead against hers, eyes closed. "This will destroy us," he said, voice rough with honesty. "Then let it," she answered, her whisper steady. "I'd rather be ruined with you than safe without you." The words hung between them, reckless and true, and she knew then there was no turning back. They were past the point of pretending, past the point of restraint. Whatever waited for them beyond this night, judgment, heartbreak, fire, it didn't matter. Because here, in the silence of the desert night, they had each other. And that was worth every risk. The wind stirred, carrying the heat of their bodies into the cool darkness, carrying their secret into the endless sand. They held each other, neither speaking, both knowing the world would demand they walk away. But for now, for tonight, desire had won. And in the desert, under the burning stars, their love was a flame that refused to die. Daniel's fingers traced lazy patterns along her arm as though he were memorizing her, committing every inch of her to memory in case this was the last time. Lena tilted her head back, eyes half closed, watching the stars burn above them. The sky was vast and merciless, yet she felt small only in the way he held her, as though she belonged entirely in his arms. "You make me forget who I am," he murmured, voice barely louder than the wind. "Maybe that's the point," she whispered. "Maybe out here, we can be whoever we want." He kissed her again, slower this time, savoring, tasting, dragging the moment out until every nerve in her body hummed. His hands slid to hers, their fingers tangling, and it struck her how dangerous it was to feel this much for someone she wasn't allowed to love. But she didn't let go. Neither of them did.